Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Ahiman Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. So we're continuing with Venu Gita, chapter 9, the saintly birds of Vraj. So I'll just go back to the verse here from Bhagavatam, which this chapter is expanding on. Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 21, 14. And the Sanskrit goes like this. Rayo Bhatamba Vihaga Munayo Vanesmin Krishnekshitam Tad Uditam Kalavenu Gitam Aruhya Ye Druma Bhujan Ruchira Pravalan Shrinvanti Milita Drisho Vigatanya Vachaha. O mother, in this forest all the birds have risen onto the beautiful branches of the trees to see Krishna. With closed eyes, they are simply listening in silence to the sweet vibrations of his flute, and they are not attracted by any other sound. Surely these birds are on the same level as great sages. So where we left off yesterday was Purnamasi was speaking about the glories of the birds. So we're going to continue. Purnamasi continues speaking. Let me now sing of the third perfection possessed by the Dvija Munis, the crowned emperor. Someone wants to record. Okay. So Purnamasi she's speaking about the Dvija Munis. So by this Dvija Muni, Dvija means twice born. And this word twice born means birds and also sages or Brahmins who are second initiated. So twice born means that they're born, a Brahmin is born first from the mother, and then second, they take initiation. They take Brahmin initiation with the Gayatri Mantra. So that means they're twice born. And birds are also twice born because they're born from the mother, but they're still in the egg. And then when the egg hatches, it's like they're born, that's their second birth. So the first birth is the egg coming out of the mother bird's body, and the second birth is the baby bird coming out of the egg. So similarly, the Munis, their first birth is coming out of the mother, being born from the mother, and the second birth is initiation into the Gayatri Mantra. So by using this word Dvija Muni, Purnamasi is referring to both the birds and the sages. And yesterday we were hearing about how the birds are like sages because they're very focused. They're just closing their eyes and meditating on the sound of Krishna's flute. But that actually some of the birds actually are sages, like the Kumaras and the Nava-yogendras, who have taken the form, by their mystic powers, they've assumed the form of birds so that they can witness Krishna's Vraja Leela. So it's just interesting that she uses this word. It's just perfect. It's like perfect. So now she's going to tell us about the third perfection of these Dvija Munis. And that perfection is, she says, is the crowned emperor of all good qualifications, known as Krishna Eka Sharanam, or exclusive dependence on Sri Krishna. Although Lord Vishnu, Lord Indra, and Lord Brahma sing very sweetly and are expert in playing instruments, these sages are not attracted to them. Similarly, the songs of the Devas, Gandharvas, and humans are liked by many, but these birds have realized the quintessence of musical achievement in the flute playing of Sri Krishna and have no attraction to anything else. Their interest is exclusively in Sri Krishna and his Venu Gita, and they have no interest in any other being, whether on earth, in Swarga, or in Vaikuntha. So one may think, oh, the birds, they're attracted to Krishna's flute playing. They like music. So they probably like the music of the demigods, the singing of the Gandharvas, the music of Lord Vishnu or Lord Brahma. So he's saying here, no, they're not interested in anything else. They like only one kind of music, and that is Krishna's transcendental flute playing. So this quality is Krishna Ekasharanam, and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are listed 26 qualities of a devotee. And there are a lot of nice qualities listed there, like being merciful, being kind, being tolerant, being patient, being grave, being poetic, like that. But out of all of the qualities, the one quality, which is the principal quality, is Krishna Ekasharanam. Because Krishna Ekasharanam means that taking exclusive shelter of Krishna, complete dependence on only Krishna and no one else. Like these birds, they're listening to only Krishna's flute and nothing else. Because other people may be tolerant. People who are not devotees may be tolerant. They may be patient. They may be kind. They may be compassionate. They may be poetic. They may be grave. But they don't take exclusive shelter of Krishna because if they're not devotees. So really what is the principal quality out of the 26 is this quality here that the birds have, Krishna Ekasharanam. Because these birds are not ordinary birds, they're devotees because they are Vraj Vasis. Okay. Yogamaya, Srimati Purnamasi Devi, desired her disciple to continue chanting the glories of Sri Krishna and said, "O my beloved, please explain which category of transcendentalists these munis in the form of birds belong to, and give evidence in support of your claim." So now Purnamasi, she was speaking for a while, and now she wants to hear her disciple, Nandimukhi, speak. Bowing her head slightly, Nandimukhi said, "According to Shastra, there are three leading categories of jnanis. They are the Brahmavadis, who aspire to enter into the Brahmajyoti, the Paramatmavadis, who meditate on the form of Lord Vishnu, and the Bhagavadvadis, who meditate upon the Supreme Lord. By the association of a pure devotee, both Brahmavadis and Paramatmavadis can enter into Vaikuntha and achieve the personal association of the Lord." In the verse beginning with Atmaramas Chamunayo, Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies the variety of munis who take shelter of devotional service upon hearing the transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna, abandoning all other forms of meditation. So this Nandimukhi is very scholarly, and she knows Bhagavatam verses. To see the girls of Vraj, they quote Srimad Bhagavatam. Although the gopis were simple village girls, untrained in the philosophy of the Vedas, they took great pleasure in hearing of the high qualification of Vraj's birds, for it was in relationship to the pastimes of Hari. They asked further, "Which category of munis are the birds, Nandi?" So the gopis, because they're cowherd girls, they don't study the scriptures the way Nandimukhi does, because Nandimukhi is a Brahmani, and she knows the scriptures. So they're untrained in the philosophy of the Vedas, but they enjoy hearing about it. They enjoy hearing from Nandimukhi. And especially they like hearing about the birds of Vraj because they have devotion for Krishna, and the gopis can relate to that. They can totally relate to Krishna Ekasharanam because that is the essence of their being. So they're asking further, "Which category of munis are the birds, Nandi?" The Brahmani replied, "Just see how the birds sit with their eyes closed tight. It is clear from their behavior that they have achieved Atma Tattva Gyan, knowledge of the self, and are absorbed deep in Samadhi. We get a clear hint of the level of their advancement by listening to the sounds they now emit. Listen carefully." So let's hear what sound the birds are making. Nandimukhi placed her forefinger near her lips and with the movements of her dark eyes, concluded any verbal discussion. Craning her neck, she turned her ears in the direction of the seated birds, while the gopis looked on, and all of Vrindavan fell under a spell of silent anticipation. At a distance, invisible to both the gopis and birds, Sri Krishna became active in play. and taking the flute from his lips, tucked it into his belt, and concluded his musical performance. When the sound of the flute was no more, the birds, feeling separation from its transcendental vibration, began to chant his names in unison. They cried, "Krishna, Krishna, Krishna," as tears of ecstasy rolled from their eyes down their beaks, and they trembled with ecstatic rapture at the sound of his holy names. Without uttering a word, the gopis looked at one another in disbelief. While they had witnessed many uncommon occurrences in Vrindavan, the congregational chanting of the birds was truly wonderful. As the sweet vibration entered their ears, they too joined the kirtan and softly repeated, "Krishna, Krishna," their voices melting with affection. Standing on the tips of her toes and speaking very quietly, Nandimukhi continued, "If any of these birds were once interested in Brahman, that inclination is no more. The Venu Gita is Kala iti jagat kshitam. It influences the consciousness of all beings, and tasting its song, the birds have now closed their eyes to completely renounce the pleasure of Brahman. Because they show no interest in speaking with each other and are mad with Krishna Ananda, we must consider that they are Bhagavat Bhaktas. Like great Vedic scholars, these birds have understood the words of the Gita, Vedaishcha sarver aham eva vedya." That means that by all the Vedas, Krishna is saying, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. And having taken shelter of Sri Krishna's holy names, they have rejected all other branches of knowledge and dwell only in the realm of pure devotion. Sitting on the very tops of the trees, they listen to the very beautiful sound of the flute. And when Krishna stops his playing and begins to talk to his friends, they chant, "O Krishna, O Krishna." With their eyes closed, they are experiencing Maha Prema Sampati. In fact, it appears they have fainted under the influence of their own ecstasy and are floating in an ocean of Ananda. Considering these extraordinary symptoms, we can only conclude that these sages are all great devotees. One young girl, possessed of an intense attachment to Govinda since her infancy, said, "The statement praya indicates that almost all the birds are great sages, and simultaneously excludes certain birds from the Muni Kula. Pray tell, who are they?" And she's referring back to this, let's see, Sanskrit verse. Yeah, it starts off prayo batam bhavihaga munayo. Vanesman. So she's saying praya means almost all of them. So who are the others? Who are the ones who are not like Munis? Nandimukhi replied, "Although these birds are absorbed in meditation on Bhagavan, they are not Vrajabhaktas. Vrajabhakti is the highest spiritual attainment, glorified throughout the Vedas, and can be achieved only by one who has perfected the devotional arts of singing and dancing. It is true that these birds chant the name of Sri Krishna while absorbed in trance. However, they are not kirtaniyas and have no experience with dancing and chanting. The word praya refers to them, for they comprise the majority of birds in Vrindavan, but not all. Some birds, having surpassed the greatest munis, being decorated with the symptoms of unalloyed love and engaged in constant glorification of Sri Krishna, have gained admission into his unlimited pastimes. Everyone knows of the peacocks who always engage in dancing, though they do not sing very nicely, and the parrots and cuckoos who sing very melodiously, although they cannot step as gracefully as the peacocks. These three birds are in a category of their own. They are not munis like most other birds, but they are great devotees whose association the other birds will eventually know. They are great devotees by whose association the other birds will eventually know the glories of Braj Bhav. So what I'm understanding here is that some of the birds are munis or sages who are interested in Krishna, but they're not pure unalloyed devotees. And so they're not in the mood of Vraj Bhav, saying they're not Vraj Bhaktas. But then there are other birds, and those munis, that's why they're just sitting there with eyes closed, because they're kind of like, people who know about Krishna, and maybe they're interested in Krishna, but they're not unalloyed devotees. They're not unalloyed devotees. So they'll be more into like meditation. They like to meditate on Krishna, but they don't get up and dance. They don't dance in ecstasy like the devotees do, or they might sing quietly, but they don't, get really wild in kirtan like the devotees do. So those birds that are sitting there with their eyes closed, they're the munis, and the ones, the birds who really like got ecstatic devotional love for Krishna, who are on the level of Raj Bhakti, those are the ones that like sing and dance, like the peacocks and the cuckoos and the parrots. So these are different categories of birds in Vraj. And interestingly, there are also different categories of gopis in Vraj, at least in the Boma Lila, right? They're the gopis that are the Nitya Siddha gopis who come down from Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world to take part in Krishna's pastimes. Then there are also the gopis, some gopis who are, they were the personified Vedas previously. So they're called the Shruti Chari gopis. And they also take their birth in Vraj as gopis, but they're a little different. And then there are the Rishi Chari gopis, who were previously sages in the forest of Dandakaranya that saw Lord Ramachandra pass through. And even though they were in male bodies as rishis or sages living in the forest, they became attracted and wanted to have like a conjugal relationship with Lord Ram. And Ram said, you need to wait until I appear as Krishna, and then you can all have that relationship with me. So they became gopis in Vraj to have that conjugal relationship with Krishna. And then there are also the sadhana siddha gopis, who are devotees like us, who practice lifetimes of sadhana bhakti and gradually worked up through Vaidhi bhakti and Raganuga bhakti, bhava bhakti, and came to prema bhakti, and became, due to their prema, a love for Krishna, in the mood of the gopis, they became eligible to take birth in Vraj and participate in Krishna's pastimes. So amongst the gopis and Vrajbasis and other, human forms, there are different categories too. And apparently this is true for the birds also. So it's just interesting little parallel there. Nandimukhi concluded her explanation of the saintly birds. So this is what she says. Having extolled the unique position of the peacocks, parrots, and cuckoos, we should avoid any offenses to the sages. Although they have not achieved the topmost perfection, their achievement should not be minimized. After all, they have entered Vrindavan, and with their very eyes they behold the beautiful form of Govinda. Just see the trees. By the very touch of the Muni Jana, they experience great bliss. The many beautiful sprouts, Ruchira Pravala, appearing on their twigs are the Sattvika Vikar, ecstatic transformation they undergo as a consequence of the bird's divine touch. In this way, by such elevated association, the trees also taste great ananda and shiver in happiness. So this is something nice to remember, that, for us too, that here in our temples, there are people that come to our temples and come to take darshan of our deities, Radha and Krishna deities, and they're in the presence of Radha and Krishna. And our temples are non-different from Vrindavan. Like Srila Prabhupada created embassies of Vrindavan all over the world. So all sorts of people come to our temples, right? And they're all at different levels of spiritual advancement. And sometimes, we can think, oh, these are the devotees and these ones are just the visitors or something. So similar situation. Some of could think, oh, the parrots, the peacocks, and the cuckoos, these are the unalloyed devotees, and these are, some Muni sages that aren't quite there yet. They need to, cultivate the right mood for a little while still. So that's the situation. But Nandimukhi, she's a broad-minded Brahmin, and she's saying that we should not minimize the position, because after all, they have entered Vrindavan. So we should think the same. After all, these people, whatever level they're at, for whatever reason they came, they have somehow entered our temple. They're standing here in the temple room in front of Radha and Krishna, or here in Dallas, Radha Kalachandji. this is, like a lotus petal of Vrindavan. This is an extension of Vrindavan Dham. And somehow they've entered. So they are special souls. And it says here that the birds who are the Muni birds, they're let's say the trees, when the trees come in contact with them, who are standing on the branches, the trees develop ecstatic symptoms by those birds' divine touch. So anyone who's attracted to Krishna, anyone who has some proclivity towards spiritual life, who chants the holy names of Krishna, then they should be respected. And that's what Rupa Goswami says that in the Nectar instruction, that we should offer our obeisances, or offer, as you say, we should mentally honor anyone who is chanting the name of Krishna. And then we should offer our humble obeisances to those who have taken initiation and are serving the Lord. And then we should faithfully serve those who are unalloyed devotees. So we respect everyone. Okay. Having completed her explanation, Nandimukhi touched the feet of her preceptor and took her seat among the assembly, silent, fully absorbed in the wonder of the birds, the flute, and Sri Krishna. Gopis, young and old, continued their katha late into the afternoon. The birds continued to sit atop the tree branches with the hope of hearing the flute song of Hari. To avoid any visual distraction, they closed their eyes, curbing any inclination to fly, and fully controlling their natures, they meditated upon Sri Krishna and the magical vibration of his flute. That's the end of that section, but we still have some time, so I'll just go straight into the next section. Okay, so this is interesting. This is going to be from the perspective of Krishna's flute, which is a personality. It's not just a stick or a bamboo stick with holes in it. It's actually a personality. Sri Krishna's flute was mindful of the devotion exhibited by the birds of Vrindavan. So the flute was conscious and aware of these birds' response to the flute. Being Sat Chit Ananda Rupata, the very form and substance of spiritual mellows, it, the flute, took the initiative to please those sages by extending them its transcendental influence through a very, very beautiful song. As Sri Krishna held the Venu by his side, it began to play a song all on its own. Check that out. Krishna wasn't even blowing in it. It was just there, tucked in Krishna's belt, and it started playing a song by itself. Raising the flute before him in amazement, Sri Krishna and his friends observed with wide-eyed astonishment its independent nature as it sang a beautiful melody, inspiring great ananda in the birds. Ananda means happiness or bliss. So even Krishna and his friends were astonished that the flute was playing its own song. The flute was not only the source of its song, but without any help from any medium, like the air or wind, it was the messenger which delivered its song to the ears of the birds. Sri Krishna, the all-attractive person, became so enchanted by that extraordinary raga that he could not restrain himself from its association, and manifesting his unlimited potencies, he entered into the flute and appeared through its holes in the form of another, even more inconceivable sound vibration. Wow, this is very interesting. Srila Sanatana Goswami says this is the meaning of Krishna Ikshitam. Krishna Ikshitam must come in the verse. Let's see. Yeah, Krishna Ikshitam. In a later chapter of the Bhagavatam, Sri Shukadeva Goswami states that birds other than those sitting in the trees also experience the ecstasy of the flute. He says, Sarasi sarasa hamsa vihangash charu gita rita chetasa etya harim upasatte yatta chitta anta militadrisho dritta monaha. All the cranes and swans in the water are being enchanted by the melodious song of Krishna's flute. They have approached and are worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead with full attention. Alas, they are closing their eyes and becoming completely silent. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 35, Text 11. So this is talking about the cranes and swans, the water birds being enchanted by Krishna's flute. As the midday sun took a westerly course, the assembly of girls and ladies sat in the shade of a rooftop shelter, happily speaking the glories of Sri Krishna and the birds of Vrindavan. In time, the conversation turned to the many roles the birds played in serving Sri Krishna and his various incarnations. I'm still surprised by this thing that we heard before, that Krishna entered the flute and appeared through its holes in the form of an inconceivable sound vibration. He entered the flute by manifesting his unlimited potencies. So it's not clear in which form he entered the flute, but somehow he manifested specific potencies, and through those potencies he entered the flute and appeared through the holes. He came out. So that sound vibration was, in that moment, in that instance at least, is Krishna himself. It's Krishna himself. Okay, so where were we? All right, so now the conversation turned to the roles that the birds played in serving Krishna and his incarnations. Mukara, the grandmother of Radharani, had joined that gathering at the conclusion of Nandi Mukhi's shiksha on the Muni birds. So as Nandi Mukhi was finishing her instructions about these birds being Munis, and just towards the end of that, Mukara arrived. And Mukara is Radharani's maternal grandmother, I think. So she would be Mother Kirtida's mother. Breathless from climbing the stairs and excited from a recent encounter with Jatila, she sat on an elevated platform next to Purnamasi, recounting her recent experience. Wow, so we're really getting the the elder sadhvis of Vraj all assembling here. You know, there's Purnamasi, there's Mukara, Mother Yashoda is there, other of the elderly gopis are there. Straightening her snow-white hair, Mukara said, "Having just arrived from Javat, I feel I am in quite a fix." Purnamasi placed a comforting hand on her arm. Just now, Jatila, the ever-argumentative incarnation of confusion, accosted me regarding the chastity of my beloved granddaughter, Radhika. At the mention of Radharani's name, the younger girls became attentive to hear more. You can imagine these elderly women talking, and the little girls are there, kind of around, maybe talking amongst themselves or looking around, and then they hear the name Radharani, and they all stop talking and focus their attention to find out what's happening with Radharani. Mukara is continuing her narration of what happened. While walking here, I happened to meet her and that equally crooked daughter of hers called Kutila. As soon as she set her eyes on me, Jatila swooped upon me like a crow on juicy refuse. The metaphors they use for poor Jatila. Continuing to pat her hand, Purnamasi said, there, dear, don't be so aggrieved." Greeting her, I inquired about the welfare of her kin and cows, continued Mukara, but she immediately turned on me, accusing my granddaughter of improper behavior with Krishna. Knowing Radhika to be pure and chaste, and Sri Krishna always absorbed in childhood play, I rejected her complaint, at which she became even more incensed. She said, "Only the other day, I saw Krishna wearing a necklace which was previously in the possession of my daughter-in-law. What obtuse explanation can you give for that, fat one?" I explained to her that Nanda Maharaj had many pearl necklaces in his treasury, which resembled Radhika's, all to no avail. Infuriated, she replied, "You cruel-faced Mukara, by hearing your words, my heart feels like it is burning in a fire." Not able to contain myself further, I exploded. "You sinful Jatila, by hearing your words, there is an aching in my head. You cannot give evidence that Krishna has acted improperly with Radharani, the daughter of my daughter Kirtida. Neither can you prove that your daughter-in-law has been unchaste. You are just a foolish, impetuous witch." Wow. At this time, Sunanda Baba, the elder brother of the king, so okay, this is Nanda Raj's older brother, appeared and resolved the situation, sending us in different directions. So now I am here, and my blood is boiling. Oh, it looks like he didn't resolve it. He just split them up. The ladies pacified Mukara, consoling her with sweet words. In conclusion, Nandi Mukhi said, "I cannot say anything about my elders like Jatila, but one can know a tree by its fruit. Similarly, the glories of Jatila Devi can be understood by understanding the qualities of her daughter, Kutila. Just recently, I heard Lalita Devi giving a very clear summary judgment regarding Kutila Devi's glories, which I shall relate to all of you. As the ladies drew near Nandimukhi, quoting Lalita Sakhi, she said, "My dear Kutila, daughter of Jatila, your breasts are as long as string beans, simply dry and long. Your nose is so gorgeous that it defies the beauty of the noses of frogs. And your eyes are more beautiful than the eyes of dogs. Your lips defy the flaming cinders of fire, and your abdomen is as beautiful as a big drum. Therefore, my dear beautiful Kutila, you are the most beautiful of all the cowherd girls of Vrindavan. And because of your extraordinary beauty, I think you must be beyond the attraction of the sweet blowing of Krishna's flute." Having such appropriate praise for the self-crowned princess of Javat, that assembly of gopis burst into a rhapsody of clapping and laughter. "Sadhu, sadhu," they all exclaimed. "Well said, Lalite, well said." When that din of jolly humor subsided, Purnamasi Devi, who is respected as the guru of the Vrajavasis, who is vastly learned in all scriptures, and who is as affectionate to Sri Krishna as his mother, Yashoda, began to narrate the adventures of Hari and his bird associates. The gopis sat respectfully at her feet, absorbed like sages of Naimisharanya, desirous of hearing the Bhagavatam from the renowned Sutta Goswami, the son of Romaharshana. All right, so now Purnamasi is going to start her narration of the adventures of Krishna and his bird associates. But our time is up, so we're going to have to hear that tomorrow. Stay tuned. Hear from Purnamasi. Hare Krishna, Venu Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and thank you all for